Hello everyone, today's video is going to be a little different, as I have just learned that I've been recognized by several of my peers, some of which have even been my inspiration to start making this content that I'm currently doing. So I'm excited to share all the productive, insightful, and generous things they had to say about me.
It's like, are you a child?
What the fuck's wrong with you?
Person
Right,
actually,
yeah,
totally.
totally.
Actually, fuck off.
Why are you reviewing things this way? It's rude.
All aboard the bad faith train, choo
Choo
choo.
choo.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, allow me to peel back the curtain a bit and provide some context for what's going on here. The first video essay I ever made was called Joss Whedon Hates Captain America, and it is also my most controversial video, as I rip into the first Avengers film due to its subpar portrayal of Captain America. This video was decently received for me at the time. It got me a couple hundred views and a handful of likes. A month later, I made another video, originally titled The MCU Killed the Hulk, and this one just blew up out of nowhere, getting my channel monetized overnight and getting 500,000 views before YouTube kicked my momentum in the balls with an unwarranted age restriction that has since been removed. Then, as a result of this video's success, the old Captain America video gained a lot more traction, with more mixed results. And apparently this caught the attention of the EFAP crowd. For those who are unaware, EFAP, or Every Frame of Pause, is a podcast made up of several YouTubers who make similar content to myself, that being video essays that deconstruct modern cinema and other similar topics. Apparently they didn't like my video, and they felt the need to break it down and viciously complain about every aspect of it, as well as making some cutting jabs to me personally. This podcast of theirs was made several months ago, yet I only discovered it by chance recently, even though I follow this channel, and that's because I'm not in the thumbnail, I'm not in the title, I'm not mentioned anywhere in the description, and despite them milking my entire video for content, they made no links to my video or channel whatsoever, and my video sandwiched between a bunch of other content in a 10-hour long stream. And they never mentioned me by name when they introduced the video. Like, damn, if you guys are going to use your platform to trash my reputation, you could at least give me a shout out while you do it. This is fine though, because it gives me a chance to return to this video and unpack it a bit, since it is apparently so controversial. Although my ratio is still pretty good, so I must be doing something right. Regardless, as I mentioned, this was my first video essay that I've ever made. I used to make different content on this channel in the past, but we don't talk about that anymore. It didn't work. This was just me taking a risk and putting myself out there by trying something new. And this was a hot take I've been holding on to since the film first came out, and it's one that not many people share, obviously, so I thought it would make me stand out. But when I look back on it, I'm not super proud of this video. I could have definitely articulated myself much better. I think that if I were to remake it today, I would add a lot more details to my points for why certain things are bad, and I would provide way more examples for what better changes could look like. And I would more so make this video about comparing and contrasting the Captain America from this film to his appearances in other films and media. I would also try to give the video a more fun tone, as opposed to being as negative and aggressive as I was. I wrote the script for that video during my free time at my crappy old job, because I was bored and wanted to vent my frustrations. That said, I still stand by the basic premise of this video. I think Captain America could have been portrayed far better in this film, and there's a clear leap in quality from how he is in this movie compared to how he's used in later films. These people do not agree. I tried reaching out to them in hopes of defending myself on their show, but that didn't work out. So just as they use my content for their own personal gain, I shall use theirs. Before I get into it though, I just find it odd that they're even talking about me in the first place. I had 200 subscribers when I made that video, and I slowly grew to about 10k by the time they made their video, and I don't really have much more than that today. By the way, speaking of subscribers, you should totally become one, so I don't understand why they feel the need to specifically stomp the hell out of my video right as I'm getting started. Talk about punching down. It's one thing to bash massive corporations like Disney and Amazon, and make them cry into their giant money bags, but I didn't even get my first check from YouTube when they started ripping into me. I was happy when that Captain America video made more than 100 views. My average at the time was 15. It's interesting because I've listened to many of these people give advice for up and coming YouTubers, and they often say that one's first video will not be their best work, but they should still put it out anyway so that they can learn and grow from the experience. That's what they preach, but what do they practice? Oh, what the fuck? This guy's trying to make content that we didn't approve? I'll think again, Buster. This video's going down. They could have examined my Hulk video, or even my Aliens video, because I put a lot more effort into those videos, and they are much better reflections of my work, and they could have used their platform to drive traffic my way, but instead they chose to pick the video they didn't like, and stomp it into the mud. Why do they even care what my tiny channel has to say? Maybe they're just jealous because my She-Hulk videos did better than theirs. Who knows? I've seen them do this with other channels as well. Speaking of, subscribe to Philmento. He's made his own fair share of hot takes, but he's also made a lot of other great content. His Pirates of the Caribbean videos are particularly good, and have given me a deeper appreciation for those films, even with me already liking them in the first place. Now, there are a ton of these guys on this show, and they say a lot of things over an aggressively long period of time, so I'll just try to target the main essence of their rebuttals, and explain why I either agree or disagree with them. I encourage you to watch the full video for yourselves, because I'll cut a lot out for the sake of time management.
Well, so funnily enough, the reason this was found, I saw in the Discord, was, you know how everyone hates what they've done with Hulk? Was like,
Yeah.
People are making videos about it now because like it's like, oh, I'll explain to you guys what's wrong, as if any of us don't know. But I'm not blaming them. Make the videos. Go ahead. But like there's a couple of them that came out, and one of them did pretty well. It was like how the MCU killed the Hulk, and went through like all the different movies and stuff.
So right away, I like how he doesn't mention my name, conflates me with a bunch of other people, and downplays the fuck out of my Hulk video.
People are making videos about it now because like it's like, oh, I'll explain to you guys what's wrong, as if any of us don't know.
Well, apparently not, because none of you made any such videos, and 500,000 people flocked to my tiny 200 subscriber channel and graciously thanked me for making this. This is also rich coming from the guy who has nearly 24 hours of footage dedicated to breaking down Multiverse of Madness. The problems with that film aren't exactly hard to find. This unflattering introduction is a pretty big red flag that will indicate how the rest of this breakdown will go. They did not come here with good intentions. You could have provided context by saying this was the first video from a small channel. You could have pointed out that this isn't the best reflection of my work, and I have far better videos out there, including my She-Hulk series, which was performing super well at that time. But no, instead you paint me in a negative light before the breakdown even starts. We get constant references to the idea that he's dumb because he's old.
What?
He meant to. I'm sorry. Maybe he meant to say he's dumb because he's out of time. Dumb because he's old.
Yeah.
He's just ignorant of things that happened while he was dead.
He just doesn't know references.
Yeah.
Yeah, total asshole. Why don't you know things that
Yeah,
you were
like-
dead for?
The guy from the 1940s is looking at this and says it runs on electricity.
I mean, someone from today looks at that and they're like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?"
I actually agree. I don't know.
I don't know, that's something I might say. It's like, oh, that's electricity, I think.
It's a
Look,
fun
I
moment.
know you've been in the present for like 5 minutes, but why the fuck don't you know who Stephen Hawking is?
That's another thing. It's just, if anything, it's just good consistency in terms of like, hey, probably hasn't read up on Stephen fucking Hawking.
So it seems like they're not getting the point of what I'm trying to say, and I think that's my bad for not explaining clearly enough, but I'm not bashing Captain America for having faults. I'm saying they linger too consistently on his faults. And while many of these scenes may be inconsequential in isolation, when combined they give this character an incredibly negative image when all is said and done. You can make this character feel alienated and out of touch, without making him the butt of the same joke over and over. We go from him learning that he's in the future, straight to him getting new missions from S.H.I.E.L.D. The film would greatly benefit from learning more about his perspective on the new world, what his thoughts are on the technology and culture.
So that happens in the film.
Do we not? Yeah, I was about to say, do we not get that? Like,
That is throughout the film, I would argue.
Mhm.
But most importantly, the first line he has tells you a shit ton about what he thinks. Maybe this guy will address that. Maybe because
I would say they dabble with those ideas a bit, but they could be far stronger, and his first impressions of the modern era would be especially crucial to include.
and there's deleted scenes where he's even more like acclimating to the whole modern world, which are cut, but it showed that Joss Whedon was thinking about that and was putting scenes in there to give him the option to go even more detailed into that. So I don't. It's not a good start when I know those scenes exist, and your whole prospect here is that he hates him, and this is one of your arguments.
Vanos over here even mentions that there are several deleted scenes of Captain America reacting to the new world, but he presents this as if it's a rebuttal against me. My dude, that is the point. They should not have deleted those scenes, and the film would have been better off having them. And this is just an aside, but does anyone know what Captain America means when he says this line?
I wonder. The world was at war. I wake up, they say we won. They didn't say we lost.
So I'm not super proud of how I structured this point. The way it's worded makes it sound like I'm a jerk that doesn't really care. And that's unfortunate because this comes up so early in the video and it sets a bad tone. But the heart of the issue still stands. This line is just odd. I've seen this film about 800 times and I could never figure it out.
I'm sorry, kid, do you mind replaying that?
Really?
I had to fiddle with the volume of my video and I didn't really
I
figure
know
out
exactly what he meant.
oh well, we're gonna talk about this line for a while. It's a fucking great line.
Yeah.
We'll replay it. No problem.
Please, yes, thank you.
Yeah, all the wars he would have been updated on. He would have been like, "What the fuck are these? What is this? What is everyone
Right.
doing and why?" He went into the ice before the nukes were made, right? So basically, what we're trying to point out here, there's a laundry list of what he may very well be referring to, but I would go as far as saying it's just that things we as a country, should I say that, I think he's referring to government powers. They've lost a lot of humanity, I think is kind of what he's getting at.
Maybe Captain America doesn't like paying taxes, which he didn't have to do a lot of back when he was alive, and now everything gets taxed. And post-communism and everything, the destabilized Europe, the United Nations, China. Now, it's all fine. Afterwards, everything's cool. Vietnam, it's great.
Alright, so they linger over this line for an aggressively long time. I'd say it's an odd hill to die on, but to each their own. I love that their explanation is just that everything is bad and the whole world sucks. There are still wars, lots of people died, etc. Like, sure, that's one perspective. You could also say that life is pretty good in America nowadays. We've made vast medical breakthroughs, we've avoided a third world war, and we've made vast increases in wealth and prosperity, so great to the point where starvation is incredibly rare, and people can become rich just by watching television. There is still a lot to appreciate. Moreover, the writers just drop this line and move on. Captain America makes an ambiguous reference to the idea that he doesn't like the modern world, without really ever diving into what he's actually referring to. And as a moviegoer, I would have very much liked to see a deep dive onto that perspective.
I was going to say, can anybody from the 1940s getting a full update up to 2012 be happy with all the world events?
Well, yeah. I mean, sure, a lot of bad stuff happens, but life is still really great in a lot of ways. Like, in order to make your point, you have to hate everything about the world, and it has to all just be so horrible. To me, that sounds like a bit of a reach, but I guess they just hate the world a lot more than I do. They give me crap for not knowing the clear meaning of this line, then they go on to say it has no clear meaning.
So this is like about the Patriot Act.
Well, I wouldn't want to claim it's about any one thing. That's kind of the genius of the line, right? You as an individual can think about what you believe he's talking about.
I would just take it literally, the amount of human lives that have been sacrificed after World War II.
Well, yeah, sorry, that's actually a very important one as well. It's just that we did not come out of that, without bruises that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it, like he meant it personally because he's woken up in this world that's so different to him that he's probably he's upset that he's lost all these things that kind of attached him to his civilian life, and now they're all gone.
That's the genius of the line. It can mean both things. His personal loss, what America has lost. I mean, like, imagine his view on massive corporatism. It would have been nice if they'd have spent like an entire movie on him going over that, but I think they did a really good job in Avengers covering what they needed to.
The reason I think it's a fantastic line is one of the quickest ways to have translated a shit ton about his POV, moving from 1940s to 2012, which is what you have to do.
Not everything is well in the world from his perspective.
Yes.
I heavily disagree with this. A hero from the Second World War suddenly getting thrust into the modern world is a fascinating concept that deserves to have a lot of time spent on it. I can understand if you have a bloated movie and you need to cut it down for time, but if you feel the need to cut this stuff out specifically, then your movie is missing out on its full potential. There were a lot of potentially great moments that only this film could have provided, and they just didn't do it. At the very least, it would have been interesting to know what he learned that brought him to the conclusion of saying this line.
I've seen this film about 800 times and I could never figure it out. I assume he's referring to World War II.
Are you blind to
Wait,
subtext?
I gotta be honest, you guys have to just let him speak here. This is one of the funniest fucking interpretations of the line I've ever heard in my entire fucking life.
Oh, okay.
This is what you got from it, okay?
Film about 800 times and I could never figure it out. I assume he's referring to World War II, but we did win that. By we lost, does he mean that there's still problems in the world? Later on, we find out that Hydra still exists, but at this point in the MCU, for all we know, they've been defeated. In any case, this line comes off as a pretty glass-half-empty response towards winning World War II. That whole event was kind of a big deal, and it was very hard, and he should know this. It's understandable if he's depressed about getting frozen, but if he should find levity anywhere, it should be in learning that his and everyone else's sacrifices during the war were not in vain. You would think that he would be a little bit more grateful and relieved. This is just an odd line in general.
Okay. It's actually kind of baffling.
His interpretation is
Sunshine and roses, man.
his literal interpretation is he's being like disrespectful to those who died in the war. He should be a little bit more positive about the fact that we won. It's like, are you a child? Like, what are you suggesting? That you can't have any thoughts about how we came out of that war or what happened next that are negative? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think they're misrepresenting my point here. Granted, I could have worded this point far better, but I think it's very reasonable to assume that Cap would have mixed feelings instead of being exclusively negative, and I mentioned that in the video, having him be sad for what was lost, but being grateful for what still remains. And he's known to be a pretty optimistic character, so this isn't very far-fetched. But then Iron Man suddenly appears, and Loki surrenders after taking just one hit from him. Granted,
Oh God, remember when Loki was cool?
Wait, how can he say Loki surrenders after taking one hit? Granted, it was his
Fucking
funny.
missile.
Why did you your video?
So he's annoyed that Cap went toe-to-toe with Loki and didn't defeat him, but Iron Man did. Somehow this makes Cap less of a person. Breaking news. Iron Man's power level is higher than Cap's.
Yeah, and Loki has a pretty high power level too, being Asgardian.
He's
Oh,
gone
God.
as well. Okay, also, just FYI, Loki's surrendering is part of his plan too.
Here, they actually seem to be on relatively the same page. They just misunderstood. And again, I think that's on me for not explaining clearly enough. Yes, Iron Man and Loki have higher power levels, but the way the scene is structured is what I take issue with, as Captain America seems worthless by comparison, while a better scene would make Captain America seem more valuable in spite of his lacking power. They claim that the movie did this, but I don't think it's a very strong display. It's not horrible, but it could be better. An adjustment that I would be looking for would be to give Cap an action that would explain to the audience why he is special and why it is good to have him there instead of anybody else, rather than just having him here to hold Loki off while we wait for better heroes to show up. Such actions could play out like maybe Loki attempts to use his illusion powers and they trick Iron Man, but Cap is intuitive enough to see through the deception. Maybe they could show Cap and Iron Man fighting side by side and show that even though Cap is weaker, he makes up for it by being more resilient. Maybe the crowd could fall into a panic and Cap is the only one who can say the right words to calm them down and bring order to the situation. Just something to show that this guy is an integral part of the team, and even though he isn't the strongest, we are still lucky to have him, and he has qualities that he adds to the group that no other member could replicate or do better.
It was Loki's plan to surrender, but that's beside the point.
Okay, so
That's beside the point.
That's the point.
That is the point.
I love how I get interrupted even though I'm just a recording. Like, don't pause the video and you'll find out what I'm trying to say.
When there's so much to pick through. When there's so much to pick through in Marvel, you pick this.
Of all the topics you people could have covered, why are you talking about me? Do you guys have nothing better to say or do than to pick this apart for 3 hours? But I'm actually glad that he brought this up. The more glaring problems with Marvel have already been talked about in good detail by you people. Whenever I make my own videos, I only make them if I feel that I have a unique perspective that isn't widely echoed in other spaces.
A severely missed opportunity is giving us Captain America's first impressions of Tony Stark.
Yeah, that's in there. he's got a lot of impressions of Tony Stark, but arguably it's just strange. All right.
Did you not watch the movie?
You'll be asking yourself that a lot.
I specifically said his first impression, that is objectively not in this film. Seeing Cap's reaction to the news that Howard Stark had a son, and one that is wildly more successful than he was, would have made for a pretty great movie moment that we will just never get.
When Cap tries to follow, Black Widow recommends that he stays behind because she thinks that he's too weak to help.
I sit this one out, Cap. I don't see how I can. These guys come from Legend. They're basically God.
This scene is also repeated.
He's correct.
She's correct. And
Cap's
Cap
response is
still
great.
feels, he still feels like he has to go down there and do something about it. If you think this is, you have a bizarre lens on how to judge a character's, traits and attributes. If you think that this is in any way denigrating him,
It's as I mentioned earlier, in isolation, a lot of these scenes are relatively inconsequential, maybe even good with better context. But the point is when you combine all these things and look at the bigger picture, that picture is largely unflattering. So naturally, as these people pick this thing apart one frame at a time, they're focusing in on all the small stuff and missing the bigger picture. I wish they would have gotten the full context of the video before passing judgment, but that's not how this channel do. But in the spirit of fairness, I should have definitely provided more examples of what I wanted to do differently. Having not done that, everyone seems wildly confused. This scene, in isolation, is actually pretty good. Now before you pause the video and scream at me for having it in this video in the first place, or acting like I'm contradicting myself, the point is, in the grander context, Joss writes Cap in this way in almost every scene. Other writers don't do this. It's only him, and the other Avengers aren't affected by this. He's always adding something to put Cap down in some way, be it a joke about his brains, a lackluster fight scene, or otherwise. You may like these individual scenes, and that's fine, but my argument is that he can never just have a good moment for his own without being looked down upon first.
Well, he's definitely unhappy. I'm gonna try and keep it that way.
You're not a match for him, Cap.
Thanks, partner.
When Captain
So, if anybody doesn't remember, he's referring to Ultron, a robot that has telekinesis and lasers. Cap is also not a match for Ultron, and yet he fights him and goes toe-to-toe. And it's a fucking good moment that Hawkeye is like, don't, you're never gonna beat him. He's like, Cap's POV is, I have no choice. I've got to fucking try and stop him, so thanks for the encouragement, dude.
Yeah, the point is that his teammate is needlessly disrespecting him by pointing out the obvious. This would be a better line for Ultron to say to Cap directly in an attempt to intimidate him. Then Cap could look cool by not backing down, instead of getting embarrassed by his unhelpful friend.
He uses his signature shield throw straight to the faces of Thor and Iron Man, and it literally has no effect on either of them.
it stops them.
Okay,
Maybe because one is wearing a fucking iron helmet, you dingus!
No, dingus.
You're a dingus! Oh, God! Thank God! But yes, it doesn't...
But it didn't decapitate them both, so fuck it.
Yeah, why did Cap fucking maim Iron Man in this scene? What a pussy.
Like, oh, you're both still alive. I shouldn't have even fucking bothered.
A little stagger would have been appreciated at least. It's not unheard of, and they do it in the other movies, and it's worth pointing out that every rebuttal they make takes it to the extreme. It's clear they don't even want to try and understand where I'm coming from. They have like 1,000 people on this panel, and they all just dogpile on without one of them even trying to play devil's advocate. This is all just mob mentality.
He tells them to stop fighting, and Thor tries to kill him for it. When we get to the scenes in the
Well, wait, he cuts away from him stopping the blow.
Yeah, you cut away from the fact that he deflected Thor's hammer.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking impressive.
I feel like we're being biased here, just a little bit.
It's a troll. It's a troll video.
No, it's real. He really does not. He's got plenty more arguments, Stitch. You have no idea.
Yeah, well, you glossed over Thor trying to kill Cap, so I guess I'm not the only biased one. He can't inflict any damage on this guy whatsoever, yet he can flawlessly block a dive bomb from him. Seems odd, so it appears that this is more of a flex from Cap's shield over Cap himself. This is bolstered by the fact that they can casually recreate this shockwave later on. That's why I didn't say anything about it before.
And Cap backfires at him like an insecure child. I get that we want to foreshadow Civil War,
What?
but isn't the...
No, they're not.
Firing
They're not
at someone
foreshadowing.
making fun of you is insecure.
not.
You're an insecure child if someone makes fun of you and you snap back at them.
Apparently, if like, because Cap's comebacks and Tony's are all pretty on point. They're pretty good. They're rude, but they're pretty good.
That's the point. Yeah, is that the root?
Also, Civil War, as it existed when it came out, wasn't even in the fucking horizon
No.
when they were making Avengers.
They actually, it was a last minute decision.
Yeah, I know he's supposed to be in it, right?
You're telling me that the first of many heated arguments between Captain America and Iron Man that establishes their rivalry and builds increasing tension between them throughout the entire MCU, until they eventually fall out and go to blows, is not meant to tease the idea of Civil War in any way? Well, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Why is everybody a bit catty in this environment? Why is everyone that way? Do they remember?
I don't know. Maybe there's someone on the ship casting some sort of a
spell
spell.
that the camera zooms in on and turns
Yeah.
upside down.
It's the Mind Stone. It's fucking with everybody's brains. It's making them all assholes.
This is another scene I wish I would have written differently, because most people just get lost in the weeds of using the Mind Stone to justify the scene being the way it is, but that's not really the heart of the issue. Problems arise because even though Tony is also under the Mind Stone's control, he still looks very good here and gets some of his best lines in the entire movie.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Then he redeems himself from Cap's negative comments at the end. Meanwhile, Cap's lines here make him seem like a big blue baby, and he gets no definitive redemption to prove Tony's arguments wrong. Not to mention, this scene just piles on to the many other scenes of Cap looking bad, so a strong redemption was very much needed. To better balance this scene out, either make Tony look just as unflattering, or give Cap better arguments to throw at him.
I guess he thinks Cap should be like above everything.
Also, mine's done.
That's honestly what it sounds like. That he really just thinks that Captain America is the top dog in this whole shindig.
Yeah, like he should have had more moments of being ultra badass.
He should have been almost infallible. He should have beaten Loki. He shouldn't ever get like angry.
They're jumping to the extreme again, and yeah, that's on me for not providing examples. But you know what I would rather have instead of this Cap? The Cap from the other films. He's not God tier, but he's clearly a super soldier, and they put a lot of creative effort into displaying his power that is not nearly as present in Avengers 1. Adding all these small details like him crushing radios and kicking cars really does a lot to build immersion. He's a brave underdog, but they don't need to make jokes at his expense to get that point across. They don't put him in scenarios where he's made to look dumb. That is only a Joss Whedon thing.
Their abilities?
He's got increased metabolism and improved thermal homeostasis. Her thing is neuroelectric interfacing, telekinesis, mental manipulation. He's fast and she's weird.
Instead, other writers have him focus on his areas of expertise, such as morality and leadership. It's also worth mentioning that Cap is meant to become the leader of this group, so yes, he should be top dog as far as being a leader goes, and this film should be packed full of moments that make you think, yes, this guy should be in charge.
Have you
Paying attention. I'm up to date.
do you agree with this video's ideas so far?
That Captain America's a dum-dum head? I think that's a dum-dum opinion.
Got him.
I know he's joking, but for the record, my complaints are targeted towards the way this character is written, not who the character is as a concept.
Furthermore, Stark pretty much always comes out on top in these arguments. He and Cap argue about S.H.I.E.L.D. hiding secrets, and Stark is right. Cap accuses Tony.
Okay, so Tony got it right, but Steve also went out on his own to figure it out.
And Tony's hacking them.
Wait, that's Cap's arm. He's putting the weapon down.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's saying that Stark figured it out, but I mean, Stark was the first. Tony is the kind of person who distrusts like other people, so he immediately decides to go rooting around for information, whereas it takes Steve a little bit longer to come around to the position that he ought to do that.
Cap does his own research after Tony proves him wrong, so yeah, Tony was in the right.
He can't. I mean, you talk about a quote. The quote that the guy made this video doesn't understand.
I wake up, they say we won. They didn't say what we lost.
Like, that quote foreshadows directly this moment when he finds out that S.H.I.E.L.D. is using the Tesseract to make weapons just like Hydra did.
Exactly.
That's like, the whole point is it's like the lines are blurred. Like, the good guys are using the tactics of the bad guys, and it's disconcerting.
That seems like a contradiction. Cap starts out being unhappy with the modern world, yet he has to learn to not trust S.H.I.E.L.D. Why does he trust them if he's unhappy with the current state of affairs? And for what reason does he have to go on this antitrust arc? To confirm that he was right to be ambiguously unhappy with the world? It's not like he just has this blind trust in the American government. He already knows from experience that he sometimes has to disobey orders in order to do the right thing. It's just too needlessly clunky, and the fix they should have made was to add more depth to Cap's initial perspective of the modern era.
It's like he wanted Steve to come out of the ice like a perfect Mary Sue character. Sort of.
Exactly, yeah.
He could sense, that the government was wrong intuitively with patriotism powers, and everyone just listened to him.
We'll come back to that.
Tony claims everything special about Cap came out of a bottle, and based on this film alone, that's kind of an overstatement.
No. Yeah, in case anyone's confused, he's saying the only thing special about Steve in this whole film is that he's strong because of the serum. I don't know if we ever called it like a law or anything, but when we first did EFAP, we noticed a pattern with people we were covering, and it was oftentimes they will use a visual that completely destroys their own argument.
That is the opposite of my point here. I'm suggesting that Cap does not look very strong in this film. They completely misunderstood. This clip proves it very well, as he's getting wrecked by the same aliens that Black Widow wipes the floor with. But they get my point eventually.
He fucking becomes the leader of the Avengers by the end because he has strong fucking leadership skills.
Question: what examples exist in this film that suggest that Steve Rogers should be the definitive leader for this team? Feel free to leave a comment. Personally, I don't feel that this film does nearly enough to prove why he should be the one in charge, and him giving orders seems very random.
And then he's even saying his current qualities aren't that great because he's showing clips of him struggling, and it's that
with a 7-foot alien. Okay.
Oh, a 7-foot alien. I didn't notice he was that tall. I concede. He can trade blows with Thanos, his minions, Iron Man, and much more, but I forgot that the 7-foot alien was his ultimate test. Good thing it wasn't an 8-foot alien.
Yeah, this is why he's so compelling. He's the lowest power out of like the main set of the hyper-powerful heroes. He's got to do all the same shit. He's got like because no offense to Nat, right? But she ends up with a lot of she ends up with a lot of plot armor. They end up usually showing Steve struggling the fuck out of anything in like lots of the fights that he's in. I don't know if you remember, but there's times where like it's in Avengers, Nat grabs the chariot, the floaty chariot thing. It's like speeding by. She would torn her arm off, but she just does that. She's in Civil War. She's in that car when they throw a grenade in it. And she just blows through the door.
Oh yeah, the Civil War. Yeah, that's bullshit.
Meanwhile, Steve will be shown to be like beaten the fuck out, punched and shot and bleeding, and he gets all kinds of shit happening to him. Point being is he has to struggle, right? Quite a bit more typically than.
You're such a sexist, Muller.
No, I'm saying they're the sexists. They should have given us a lot more Nat struggling.
That was my point. We agree. It's silly that Cap struggles so hard with these guys while Black Widow makes them look easy, and the Captain America we see in Civil War would definitely have an easier time here. This guy comes off as way more powerful than this guy.
Wait.
You know we're gonna get so much of this shit when Secret War stuff comes out?
Wait, what? You mean just like a bunch of random shit?
Retroactively, maybe it was all along.
Maybe Cap was a Skrull all along.
Which one was it?
It
All
says
along?
everyone.
That's what they'll do.
Phase 4. That would fix everything.
They're all lady aliens.
Oh yeah, you're right. Everybody in Phase 4 was a Skrull.
Oh, God. Ooh, nice. They could, yeah.
I agree with that.
At one point, Cap starts to lose the verbal argument and resorts to physical threats, which seems like something that would be very much beneath someone like Captain America.
What about Captain America?
I can't remember.
Hang on. Captain America comes from a time when someone insults a woman and you go and deck him and stuff.
Well,
like, absolutely.
You want to take us outside the theater, man?
One of the first scenes we have of Cap, he gets into a fucking fist fight.
Cap was not the instigator there. He is here.
See that red lever? It'll slow the rotors down long enough for me to get out. Stand by it. Wait for my word.
Stand next to the red lever.
Look at that jump.
Iron Man tells him.
Yeah, what a pussy.
Barely even do that one.
Oh,
Why is he?
Can we even theorize how high up they are right now on a blown open helicarrier? Like, you can't even stand on a rickety bridge in the middle of space.
Old man.
The second one goes down. That's when the second one gets knocked out unexpectedly.
What a bitch.
This one actually blows my mind. I can't believe they're defending the red lever scene. I really thought that this would be my least controversial point. Like, of all the things you could add into a movie like this, why make it so that his mission is to stand next to a red lever?
This video is almost like a case study of confirmation bias, where he has a conclusion, he's warping and he's twisting everything to reach his conclusion. And we could do it in reverse. Guys, Joss Whedon totally hates Tony Stark. In this scene, Tony Stark almost dies and he comes off worse and more injured, essentially, than Captain America. That shows a clear bias.
Yeah,
that means, he hates Tony Stark.
Fancy gadgets.
How bad faith do we have to be?
Rude.
All aboard the bad faith train. Choo
choo.
Yeah, talk about bad faith. Your entire goon squad is dogpiling on my video and conflating all my arguments to the extreme, even going so far as to say I want Captain America to be a Mary Sue. You guys don't even make an attempt to tickle the ideas I place in front of you. It's very clear that you came into this video wanting to hate it. There's a whole lot of pots calling the kettle black here. And yeah, I could have been more generous. That jump he did was really nice.
Even here, is there nothing more important we can think of for him? Are there not hundreds?
Nothing more important than keeping the helicarrier flying?
Yeah, keeping it in the air.
Arguably keeping everyone alive.
Well, not even arguably, it does.
They save everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. The point is that it could have been far more exciting than it was. I did not expect this red lever to be so beloved.
Can't
this
breathe, you mong!
Like a complete fool.
It's not. I'm sorry. Do you know what this is?
I know exactly what that is.
Tell me what it is.
When Steve was doing his training back in 1942, he just examined all kinds of crazy electric grids.
What's funny as well is Cap's been here for what, a week? I don't even know how long it's been in the actual time, but the idea of we're going to catch up on the hyper-specific nature of the engineering surrounding the turbine in a modern helicarrier. It's like, I don't think so.
The problem isn't that he's confused by the electronics. It's that they wrote this scene to be here in the first place. You know this is fiction, right? Why not cut out this scene and replace it with something that's not stand next to the red lever? There are so many more fun things that could have been done. A mini-boss maybe. Maybe just a more dignified fight scene. Anything else.
So Mr. Author person of this video, I got a question for you. Do you know what a computer looked like in the 1940s?
You don't?
Well, maybe it's because they
didn't exist yet.
Hey, they look just like this. I don't know what you mean.
The first computers date back to the 1800s.
So I just got a tiny little tidbit for that electronics part. I just looked up when the first digital electronic computer was invented, and then I looked up what year Cap was frozen, and both were in 1945. So he was frozen the year the first computer.
Wow. What an ignorant idiot that he didn't look into that.
That's wrong. But good try. You really thought you had something. And again, to make your point even more worthless, I ask, why does this line exist? What purpose does it serve in the film? It is a joke where Cap spits out obviously useless information so that we can laugh at his incompetence. That line exists to make Cap into a punchline, and my simple fix is to either remove it or to give him a chance to redeem himself later on. If you look at this scene from Tony Stark's point of view, all that Captain America is mildly helpful but slow, to the point where he has to talk to him like he's a child.
That stator control unit can reverse the polarity long enough to disengage maglev, and that should...
Speak English!
See that red lever? It'll slow the rotors down long enough for me to get out. Stand by it. Wait for my word.
And even when he gives him the most basic instructions, he still fails to do his job in a timely manner, and is not competent enough to protect himself, so he needs to get saved. So not only does Tony need to work around Steve's handicapped intelligence, but he also has to worry about saving his life at the same time. Not to mention Steve's failings here also put Tony's own life in danger, so through Tony's eyes, he'd probably be pretty ungrateful to have this guy around. And there is no scene after this point that makes up for this, when there very easily could have been. I think a good fix would be to show Tony realizing that Captain America really does live up to the legend legend that his father hyped him up to be. And that makes Tony jealous, as he perceives Cap to be the guy that his father cared about more than his own son. The film loosely implies this with context clues, but I'm suggesting that it should be firmly established, and a good way to do that would be with a scene of Tony first learning about Captain America's return, then giving Tony an arc where he is insecure around Cap, but then has to eventually humble himself by submitting to Cap's superior leadership. A good way to make that arc play out could look like this. Establish Cap early on as an intuitive leader that has many good solutions for the problems that rise up throughout this film, but then have Tony constantly challenge his leadership and allow previously avoidable problems to occur due to his disobedience. Then, during the opening moments of the New York battle, involve Tony disobeying Cap's orders, then getting himself in trouble and in need of rescue from his other teammates. Then, once he finally gives in and follows orders, he'll have an easier time during the fight. Then he'll realize that Captain America is the real deal and is more deserving of respect.
I intelligently didn't lose my footing, alright?
Yeah.
For his life. He is at the complete mercy of this nameless dude. Meanwhile,
Cap is often at the mercy of a nameless dude. In every movie, I actually would say.
There's a clear difference when he struggles in the other films. For example, they pack this elevator wall to wall with some of the biggest dudes they could find, one of which is meant to be a classic villain. They try to ambush Cap with these magnet gizmos, which should put him at a great disadvantage, yet he is shown to be smart enough to suss out their plan, and powerful enough to face it head on anyway, while still coming out on top and without having taken significant damage the entire time. This character is not the same as this one. He is so improved by this next film that it feels like he got injected by a second serum.
I mean, if you have an ensemble superhero movie where some characters are super powerful and some aren't, I mean, you're always going to have situations like this.
Right.
Like, what does he want Captain America to do, like, in the whole movie? Just do nothing?
Never fail.
Win everything.
There should be a supervillain assigned to every character.
Yes.
I mean, sure. Why not?
Yeah, that's pretty
in
cool.
the end, Iron Man has to fly over and save the day.
Why is Iron Man alive in this game?
The only reason why was Iron Man is because Captain America saved Iron Man.
At best, he saved the helicarrier from further damage. Iron Man would have been fine.
It should be noted that if you watch this film in isolation, you would barely know that Captain America is a super soldier. There's
My God.
Gee, maybe that clip would make sense if you didn't pause mid-point. And you called me bad faith. The punching bag and jumping scenes are about to be referenced as the few exceptions to the argument that I was about to make. I was trying to be fair here, and that's pretty obvious when you watch the full clip. Seeing them pause at times like this feels so disingenuous, because they're blatantly just trying to make me look bad for the sake of a laugh. It's disappointing and it's a waste of time. I did not make my video with the intention of having it constantly paused. You guys are making your own video harder on yourselves by not watching my video in its intended form.
He does that Hawkeye or Black Widow couldn't also do.
Fuck off! I guess this guy doesn't know. So Hawkeye has insane accuracy and sci-fi level arrows to the point where he rarely gets into one-on-one combat directly, at least in this film. I mean. And then Black Widow is supposed to be like the greatest assassin on Earth, basically. Why are you treating them like they're just randoms?
I don't know if you're aware, but Black Widow and Hawkeye have lower power levels than Captain America. These guys are clear references for what normal humans are capable of. You could show them doing what Cap does in this film, and it wouldn't be all that out of place. Meanwhile, in later films, it would be kind of odd if they did stuff like this.
Son, just don't.
A guy that looks like this is not nearly imposing enough to refer to someone as son.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like,
he does not. It's like a video game. You try to do your intimidation check. Oh, sorry, your wardrobe status is high enough to allow this action.
Come on. The mask is doofy. I'm absolutely correct on this one.
All for the sake of talking to this rando cop who immediately disrespects him.
Oh, don't you dare.
Let me reframe this. Let me reframe it. It's not to talk to a random cop, it's to supply orders to the entire police force of New York City.
He's contradicting his own point. Previously, he was saying by his appearance, no one would take him seriously. And then the next thing, someone doesn't take him seriously because his appearance is saying, no, like, I should have totally known who he was and listened to him.
Good point. Yeah,
he did say it was a nitpick, so, I guess that...
No, he said it's pretty subjective. He didn't say it was a nitpick. Meaning that he thinks it's a valid point, but you might not. And if he thinks it's a valid point, he can't make this a valid point.
So this is what my thought process was for this moment. Captain America can never just be cool in this movie. There just always has to be something that brings him down in some way. If you share my point of view, then you think that Cap's portrayal has been pretty embarrassing up to this point, and the cop disrespect is just more icing on that cake. Without the prior garbo being built up throughout this movie, this scene would not be as eye-rolling, and my only complaint would be that it is offensively cliché. Furthermore, I don't see this as a contradiction, because even though I think he looks doofy, the movie is supposedly trying to portray him as imposing, yet in spite of that, he still gets disrespected anyway. So it's like the movie is breaking its own rules a little bit. In here, he's meant to have an imposing presence, yet here he is not.
questions his authority before some conveniently placed aliens show up.
Bro,
Bro.
that would be a good job.
On D-Day, when you ran into those Germans, they were just
You ran into Germans on D-Day? How I'm sorry, I've never heard anybody describe an alien invasion as convenient.
Like, you go to a war zone and what? You don't expect to run into the enemy combatants?
Oh, convenient. The enemy is here.
A perfect number of defeatable aliens fall from the sky right at his feet at the exact second he needs them there in order to look cool. Convenient. Anyhow, this becomes a lot more of the same, so I think this is a good stopping point for the video. Some of you might frown upon me for not covering this entire thing, but I think it's clear enough at this point to tell where I stand versus where they stand. I still encourage you to watch their entire video if you have nothing to do all day. They make other good points and they make other bad points, but I covered the majority of the arguments that I felt are worth going over. If there's a high enough demand for a part 2, then maybe I'll do the rest, but don't count on it. And even if you still disagree, I at least hope that I made my point a little bit more clear. I don't want Captain America to be a Mary Sue. I just wanted him to get the same respect here that he does in his later films. And yeah, I could have explained that a lot better, but I would just peg that down to making a lot of rookie mistakes. And just for the record, I don't hate this crowd, I'm just disappointed with how flippant they were over the whole affair. I feel like if the circumstances were just slightly different, then I would be getting along very well with this crowd instead of having a feud with them. And it's kinda sad that this video is their main perspective of me, but it is what it is. I'll give a quick shout out to Mauler, Nerdrotic, Jay Longbone, and Chadiversity. Aside from this one, those people generally make fun videos, so check them out if you haven't already. I don't really care about the rest of those people. Oh, and if any of you happen to be watching this video, my name is Braeden Alberti. You best remember this name because this isn't the last time you'll hear about it. I hope that by the end of this, you viewers at home were at least a little bit entertained. And Villains Part 3 will be out soon.
Unless you don't like and subscribe, in which case I'm making Spy Games content instead. Don't test me on that.